Before Abraham was I am. And the real truth of me and all. Truth is only one. There cannot be truth over here for this person. It's true for this person, but it's not true for this person. Or it's true for some special group, but it's not true for the whole universal group. Truth is truth, and it's as true for every single person, individual of God in this universe. I am, our one universal name is I am that I am. I am that I am is our one universal name. So I am, we use in metaphysics, we use strong identification statements to cure those old statements. I am the immortal principle of prosperity. I am. In order to fully heal, we've got to get rid of the idea of death. My life is from here to here, and that's all I am. You cannot ascend on my consciousness. You have to realize I am consciousness. I may have different lifespans or whatever, but I am eternal consciousness, one with the creative all, and I am the immortal life principle. Therefore, I am the immortal spirit and principle and life of prosperity. I am that, and no other. No other. I realize I am not my beliefs of the past, behaviors and patterns of yesterday. I am not even the limitations that I may have thought when I was under the spell of delusion that I have, and that I have lived with, and labored under the force of, the oppression of, until now. I am not that. If I drive through a storm, am I the cloud I'm driving through? No, I am not. I am going through a cloud, okay? This is called the delusion. The delusion is that which is not true, but seems to be true. An imposter seeming to be true, okay? So, I am not those limitations. And I don't say it anymore. I don't say anymore, oh gee, I can't, I'm this, I'm that, I'm just I do not violate with negative words my sacred self. I do not do that anymore. All right, so we know now, if anyone can prosper, everyone can prosper. Principle is principle. Principle is universal, and it exists. It is everywhere evenly present. And by the free law of mind, everyone has access to principle. And there is no one who does not. So, a pauper can go to plant a rose seed, and a king can go to plant a rose seed. That rose seed does not care who plants it. It will bloom for both alike. And in fact, it will bloom for the one who has the highest consciousness. We've got to understand this, that this mind principle is available without limit to anyone. And he, she who has the mind of love and good knowing, just like someone who, you plant the rose seed in the soil, that's your thought going in. You plant that rose seed in the soil. And so, typically when we love our gardens and we love our plants, before we see the rose come out, we say, oh, you're going to be so beautiful. I just can't wait to see how rich, unless our mind is all cluttered, we're going to be already showering this rose that has not even appeared yet with our love and our good expectations. And that energy of our expectation is actually causing that rose to bloom more magnificently than even its prophecy. So the mixture of love, when we have an idea, we put that idea in mind, and we love our idea, and we claim it's coming about in perfect right ways, I know that it is so, because I am working with that infinite mind that can do all things for me. Then we know that we are going to have the greatest results. Just scientifically, mathematically, under the law, planting a rose seed. So we want to plant the seeds in the field of mind. We want to plant those invisible seeds of opulence, joy, success, love, all of that. And through our right expectation, then, that we are nurturing that process as it's moving along. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a seed in the soil, and mind is like that all-intelligent soil that does for you everything. And, the reason I keep saying this is so you understand. It's my mind. It's me who is responsible. And I can do anything. So the more lovely, prosperous, beautiful, harmonious my thoughts are, the better that administration or manifestation when the thing actualizes is going to be. So we don't have to have anything in our hand, and life is creative, and we don't. We have the substance of mind. So I'm walking along and I say, I want to go to college. I get the idea. I want to go to college, right? So suddenly, and I'm believing I can't go to college, and there is college for me, right? So suddenly, someone comes along, or I start to hear about different colleges, and before you know it, there I am at college. So the mind has responded to me, right? And has brought everything that I need to me, just as I have been going around in my right expectation. So these are the creative laws. How free these are. We are not bound. We are not bound, and we are living creative spirits. So we know there is this universal principle of abundance, prosperity, limitless. They say God never runs out. Mine never runs out. It's like the coffee, when you go to get coffee from the supermarket and you release those beans, they will keep pouring out until we shut the access door, right? So mine, the more that we use, the more there is. And it never runs out. It is self-perpetuating. Self-perpetuating. So we must remember this about our spirit of prosperity is self-perpetuating, never runs out of right ideas, okay, and is always happening. I am the energy of divine abundance and prosperity, always happening. All right, so we know this universal principle is of abundance. Abundance is available, we can use it, and we begin now to consciously use this. Consciously use this because we want our kingdom. We want to be living our kingdom. We give thanks for the great clarity and freedom and illumination that pours through our minds and that is pouring through our minds now. For there is only one mind. And realize, we're a group here, but we're one mind here. We're one mind considering all of these ideas. This is affecting the whole mind of the universe at this moment. So realize the deeper realization that we can get tonight, the greater it is for all of mind. We are awakening to the truth, to the real truth, to understand that all the Father hath is mine, that I have the kingdom. There is no kingdom to get sometime later. I already have the kingdom. I just need to start to use it and to bring it out, manifest in my world. So this is looking beyond the face of matter. This is rising above, believing I am my matter world, and understanding I am cause, I am master. We are discovering tonight the enduring principles of divine reality and cause. And remember, when you catch yourself thinking, gee, I wonder if I can do this, ask yourself, if God were in my situation, if Christ, if Buddha were in my situation, whoever you believe in, whoever to you speak, how would they be responding? What would they be knowing? What would they be knowing you? It's an immediate access to give yourself the prototype. Someone once said, we need better leaders. And a yogi friend said to me, we have the great leaders. We've had them for a long time. We have people who have shown us the way all over the place. We just need to recognize what that which has been shown and demonstrated, the way out already to us. Okay, so we're rising above the delusion of matter, transcending the force and mesmerism of the physical, and rising to include the more and greater horizons of good. And let us know tonight that as we proceed through these 4 weeks, that we are establishing incrementally, higher and higher levels of consciousness. And the exercises I'll give you tonight you'll be able to use this week. Okay? So I'd like to do a short meditation to begin, and then we'll go into eating increments. On its own, get very still. Right now, going within the within to the secret place of the Most High, to the starting point of all cause and all creation, the point of all power and the creation of all new things in divine consciousness. And now let us all imagine that here in this room tonight, we have now entered a new dimension of the highest level of supply. We have entered just by the very fact of our being here. And just as we have entered this new dimension, we now in mind leave behind at this moment in time and space our entire past history and memory. Realizing all power is life. I am at the point of all causal power now. And as we have left all worries, troubles, concerns right outside the door of this room, that we may commune unencumbered and free with higher reality. Each one, now see yourself in your mind's eye, gently letting go all the weight and the burden. Depositing them outside you. Now we enter in spirit in this moment, free of all encumbrances, and knowing we are gathered together to go on a great cosmic journey, a sacred, holy journey for these hours together of the ultimate truth of our being. Each one has only one thing with us, only one thing, and that is that shining, radiant goal of prosperous, abundant good. We wish to demonstrate for ourselves this evening and through the process of this evening unconditionally. There is only one thing we have with us now. And here in the sacred presence of all of God and love and universal mind and the wisdom of the ages, we now realize that we must come to the creative spirit for that new good that we want and approach the supreme providing law, that law which shall manifest all good for us. We must approach always unencumbered with no ifs, ands, buts, reservations about it. No opinions of yesterday and small judgments standing between us and all that is, but totally open to divine intelligence to stream through us now individually, according to the needs of each individual here, and flood our consciousness with a light of new awareness, and uplift us beyond the restrictions of yesterday, and show and reveal to each one absolutely the perfect path and way of fulfillment now of this goal. At this very moment, we are like the lilies of the field. We breathe the sublime breath of God throughout every atom and cell of our being, charging up on the breath of God. And we toil and we labor not, we listen. We also recognize that if our old ideas have not served us thrillingly, outstandingly till now, they are not good enough for us. Now is the very moment and time we choose to let them go forever down the hallways of eternity for the greater ideas now. If our old concepts of ourselves have caged us, limited us, stifled our great expression, now is the time we choose to let them go, divorce them forever. Thus we choose only to identify this evening, each one and all, with only the glorious truth about us. As children, daughters, and sons of the most beloved and high. And we are reunifying with our true cosmic identities of perfect light, power, and mastery right now. Luminous and far transcendent of our very own personalities and the past. Now together we look into this great cosmic law of supply to understand our nature in God, to understand how we can activate this for ourselves. And we know that no one ever approaches the kingdom unless they abide in the consciousness of greatest celebration, joy, faith, and expectancy. So we have arrived at the summit of the highest of the high. Innocent of the past, we are innocent, we are free, and we are rejoicing. And now at this moment, with clarity, I would like each one to rise up to the highest place and to rise out at the top of your head to overview the vast sea of infinite good and substance, and to view now from the high place that goal you have in mind. What is that particular goal you have in mind? And ask now from your higher self, God, what is the perfect pattern for me here? What is the highest expression for me here? What is the divine pattern of perfection that is now my opportunity to demonstrate my freedom and bring out you? And just take a few moments and listen. That pattern appears to you that you know is the highest pattern for you. We give thanks to the infinite mind for revealing this higher state as promised to each one. And when you're ready, and you are sure about that idea for you, come back to the room. What I asked you to do was bring up the goal. And once you're in the state of peace, you bring up in your mind's eye the goal or the situation, problem, issue, whatever. And so at least we identify the area we're working on. But then the next step is to call in, to open your mind to receive of the highest pattern of perfection for you, what the infinite has in mind for you regarding that. The one thing is when we do follow that perfect pattern for ourselves, what happens? We start prospering. When we're in line doing, what God wants us to do, and we are being that love, and we are doing it, and then we start prospering. Okay, this is why it's very important to be living according to the high pattern. And you can always receive it. It's right within you. But you have to ask. We're so used to not asking, to blindly following whatever's going on, we don't ask, and so we don't receive. Okay? So we have to stop what we're doing and take that moment to receive of the higher idea, And it also fortifies you, because if you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I know that I know that I know that I know, that the idea for me, for instance, let's say, I'm looking for the perfect home. Now, if I know the nature of God, I must know that Divine Mind wants for me the most perfect home for me. So that which I aspire to, the solution and the way already exists. And I fill myself with that knowing that this is desirable for me and that I am being guided. And what happens then? I go to see a home, and perhaps on my way, it's not what I wanted to take. Perhaps it's maybe in some factors, but not all factors. If I know that there is that in this universe that only wants the highest and best for me, and that is all capable and willing to manifest for me, will I stop halfway? No, I won't. I will say, that's not right for me. And I will go right back into my consciousness and maintaining my harmony about it, and I will keep going, like my great teacher said, like the postage stamp until I get there, right? So realize when you have the right spiritual ideas, you have mighty fortitude in this world to demonstrate what you want. But if your mind is clouded with compromise, negativity, and all what we call that statistic, we'll turn you into a statistic now, and if we don't have a higher concept that we can relate and affirm that we know, that we know, that we know, then we're going to be slipping and sliding, okay? So these are not wishy-washy. This is not Pollyanna. This is the great secrets of all the yogis of all time who have mastered every capacity to manifest, okay? So that's why I say, what would Christ be knowing? What would Buddha be knowing? What would, what would God know, in my situation? So we have to find strength from the energy of that pattern, and we stay with it until we see it materialized in our world. Not giving up for less. Takes a lot of strength. Takes a lot of inner fortitude, but you must if you want the kingdom. All right, so this is why it's very important to get to these higher things. And also, when you're stuck, remember, like I said, we're very pulled. We've been living in our senses for a long time. And so we get pulled in, and we believe that we're in this drama, and we're helpless, and we're like the victim. So we have to say, wait a minute, no. I see that I'm caught up. Now, what was that I was thinking about before? You have to be strong in our goals. So I want each one of you to identify for yourself a goal that you want unconditionally established in your life tonight. And while we're here. You know, we don't have to be chasing after our goals to manifest them. Consciousness manifests. All right, consciousness is everywhere. So tonight, you know, utilize the material that is being given to you to relate to your goal, whatever particular goal you have in mind, and it will give you keys. Okay. Now, I want to talk about, you know, E.V. Ingraham, about these 7 levels. Sometimes it comes later, and again, if we have not been used to centering and asking and going within, it's like the wheels are rusty. Let me put it this way. You know, one of the things, our life will be to us as we know God to be, okay? So whatever my primal or my bottom line ideas about God, the universe, are, for instance, if I believe that God is a person who sits in judgment on me and so on, my life will manifest according to that belief. If I believe that God is, you know, could have some malicious thought for me, could be withhold from me, could want lack for me, my world will manifest what I think of God, which is the all principle we're talking about, the all and the all, the great all and the all. So if we have not, you know, we may have some resistances in mind to accessing that which we call God, you know, which is the all and the all, the unnameable. We may have resistance because of that plateau of negativity, although we want to have faith. We don't want to rise because we think there's some mixture in there, that this is the fault of the collective mind, and the guilt and the fear. So that acts as a congestion in our system, and we're not free to think and to commune, and to act and to do. So what I would say is, ask yourself, you know, if you will ask yourself, do I have any suspicions about God? One guy called me, who will be coming later on in the series, not tonight, really energetic, wonderful, and he said, I have decided that I am curing myself mentally, physically, emotionally, he said, and spiritually. He said, you know, only recently did I discover that it's spiritual to prosper. So realize that there's so much inundation in our mind that there might be some idea of mixed good for us. You know, like poison is good for you. But there is no mixture. So you know that you have the divine idea when there is no mixture, when it's not a mixture of good and bad, suffering. You know, there is no good to suffering. The only point to suffering is to serve as a wake-up call that we need to get into more harmony or higher concepts. You know, there is no good to that. So, as John Randall Price says, because of the dark ages, that has gotten deeply into our bloodstream, you know, into our nervous system. And we're not used to communing with God as the great masters did, knowing it's the totality of light, love, everything, the most, you know, greatest good. And also, Peggy, this is another thing that might come in there. If we are caught up in the idea of conditions, we say, you know, metaphysically, we don't get caught up in conditions. We don't tell God how. We know that we're working with limitless mind of limitless capacity that can do all perfectly. Manifest a world, no problem, right? No problem. So whatever our challenges are, our desires, no problem for that infinite mind. So if you think, you know, that you're going to have to be someone other than you are, do something, you know, be different than who you are, thou being already perfect. Who wants to commune with the divine, with a power like that, right? So know and practice Peggy, then you have to practice thinking in terms of the highest and the best. Whenever we set out, if I go to think, let's say for a job, I immediately write down, you know, write your words, speak your words, think your words, feel your words. Get used to using divine prototypes. People will be working by divine prototypes, patterns in the new millennium, okay? So get used to say, you know, plumb yourself. If we've been living with less and living with compromise, we won't dig and we won't say, but, you know, what would make me feel really good if I knew that I could have whatever I wanted, this thing, in the way, and everything was accessible to me, what would it look like? If all, these are great questions. If I knew, this is the truth, if I knew I could have, at this moment, unconditionally, everything my heart desires, what would that look like? And then you'll find it'll start, I would be working at, I would be, receiving such and such salary. So there you have, that is the divine pattern. It's always a pattern of joy, fulfillment, freedom. We feel like we're in our harmony, we're doing our thing. Nothing's bogging us down, okay? So just keep asking, now that you know, G-O-D is the name of love, light, beauty, bounty, life, energy, fulfillment. And it is not what we thought it was, right? You can, and it is you. It is you. If like we were talking about the penthouse, we live at floors of consciousness. So if I've been in the basement, I might forget that I have a penthouse I can live in too. And, this universe is multidimensional. So according to the state of our consciousness, we're going to be living in a certain dimension of experience. And there is nothing out there that says you have to stay in the dimension you're in. What happens when I shift my consciousness, let's say I'm not a loving person, right? Let's say I've gone around and I've been critical and hard all my life. Well, of course, I'm going to get the result of that, Suddenly I discover love, and I desire to be love, and I start practicing love. It's almost like I took the elevator up a floor, maybe several floors, and I witness a whole world by the law of attraction. The world changes for me, and those people who are in the vibration with me at that time come into my world. They were always there, but I couldn't access it until I shifted up in consciousness. So you walk around thinking in terms of divine patterns, that I can, you're going to meet the whole host of people on this planet who are living by that principle. And they will support you. Usually when you're rising up, what we have to first do is exercise no power. And that means not fighting. Sometimes you have to say no to an actual person. But because the collective, the group, wants to keep you in there, in that thought pattern. So you've got to be very vigilant when you're breaking out. Say, no, I don't buy into that, I don't buy into that, I don't buy into that. Not for me, not for you, not for anyone. You are entitled to stay there if you want, but I'm moving up. So realize everything exists. I went to, up in the Catskills, I love to go mountain climbing for my inspiration. So I'm out climbing the mountains and visit the Buddhist temple out there. And there was a statue of the Buddha, or one of the Buddhas, and there was a head within a head, a replication, up, of the same figure, and yet all were the same figure. So this is what I call our levels. When I'm in a good mood, I'm in my heaven mind. I'm in heaven. Heaven is here and now. It can't be anywhere else. It's not sometime after, right? So I'm in a good mood, I'm in my heaven mind. I'm in a wishy-washy mood, maybe I'm down there, in a lower mind. So we have to work through right technique and right consciousness to learn how to be up there all the time. All the time. And if I fall down, how to walk myself up, back again. Consciously, knowing what I'm doing, right? So this is why I think, Peggy, so practice makes perfect, and by practicing the law and nurturing that will open up those centers. And remember, it is not the idea for you unless it is the perfection of good and causes you to feel joyous. That click. Yeah, that would make me happy. That's a perfect picture. And clean up anything in your picture that does not agree with that. For instance, I love my job, but I'm, suffering financially. That is not a divine picture of harmony, of perfection. There's a lack idea in there, which is not the truth of life. So we don't have to cure life, we have to cure our idea of life, right? Okay, first law, law of absorption. Now this is like building your building. You want, the temple, the crystal temple that is permanent. Law of absorption, first level. So often in life we're running around, and we're not noticing what is. We don't notice the given, right? We want, and yet we have no consciousness of what we already have. So if things are not moving for you prosperously in your life, maybe you have not performed the first step, which is to absorb and recognize that which is. First step. I've got to recognize and appreciate and absorb that which has been given. Like my breath has been given to me. I don't have to worry about that. I just have to work it and it's available. So the beauty in nature and all the things that nurture the spirit, we are spirit. So we must nurture ourselves spiritually to feel nourished and to feel whole. So if something is stuck in my life, perhaps I've gotten out of balance and I have not recognized what is. We talked about and absorbed it. Breathe it in, commune with it. Sometimes your problems can be solved by taking a walk in the park, and I mean that absolutely. Sometimes we're so much in a situation that we're congesting the answer and we're out of balance. So we need to go away from that and go breathe in and think about something beautiful, something wonderful that empowers the spirit, and then your solution will come like that. First step, say, God, I see thy kingdom. It's great. It is great. And as I look outside myself, divorce my own problems, which I've created anyway from my enclosure, and start to expand out and realize what is in this universe and how great and magnificent it is, guess what happens? Checks start coming, things are happening, okay? Because I have harmonized, all right? Good things are happening for me. So always, do this periodically, frequently, make it a part of your rhythm. And, we hear of great, great masters, and probably the only word they ever said was, thank you, God, meaning great law, thank you, and they have everything. So if our mind was in a constant state of gratitude, we would be the power of the ages. Thank you. If I have a little good in my life, thank you for the good I have, that it may be more, that it may be made more. If I say, well, there's no good ever happened to me, I get to have more of that. Guess what? By the law. So I look deep within, I say, thank you for this, thank you for that. And so this is receiving, praising, recognizing what is, and realizing that we did not create this universe. The universe, the great mind created it, and it likes to be appreciated as much as we do, and then it will do amazing things for us. And reciprocity, reciprocal, it's a reciprocal universe. It is to us as we are to it. It is to us as we are to it. Law of absorption. All right? Now the next. Okay, so once you stabilize in that, and I do that very often, I will just stop what I'm doing and start absorbing, taking in that peace, praising, recognizing, getting my mind off, whatever. And then I am peaceful. Now, the law of force is the second one. And the law, we can experience outer delay when our inner requirements are not met. All right? Force sort of relates to the animal kingdom, or that energy, that we see since we all kingdoms live in us, we're the highest manifestation of all of that. That the negative expression we'd say of the animal kingdom is taking from others, through force, cunning, preying, on those who have, right? And the cure to that, or constructive energy, is what we see through the animal, let's say, is the courageousness, right? The intuition, the instinct, the ability to respond, right? The alertness, And the law of force, any of these spiritual laws, if we do not act them out spiritually, if you do not do the spiritual work, you will be relegated to do the work on the outside. In other words, if I do not utilize the law of force constructively, which is through being courageousness, not willing, and trying to, assert my will over others, but, being responsible for establishing my own good, and then force where? When we are moving dimensionally in consciousness and coming into a new mind, really putting on the new mind, we very often have to assail the kingdom of heaven. And the kingdom of heaven can be taken by storm, and that means, heaven means high mind, the true ideas. So I may have to wrestle, like Jacob with the angel, all night long. There is abundance. I don't believe it. There is abundance. I have to exert my will to exert the truth, to stay on the line of truth no matter what the appearances may be. And if I do not, in that moment, when I can fall apart or I can go the last mile through asserting my divine will to assert the truth, not over someone, but within myself, if I do not perform that, I might be relegated to trying to force it to happen in the world, trying to make it happen. And of course, it doesn't, it dissolves. We can force things into being, but they dissolve. They haven't been gotten through the right pattern of truth. So we want to be, courageous, self-assertive, trusting in the law, and wrestling with principles so long as we need to, until it is so much a part of our being, and we have demonstrated it in our world. And when I'm going through the tug of war and I'm shifting from negative to positive, who says it's great? Fillmore, great metaphysician, he says at every moment you have a choice. Are you going to respond to this situation from your divinity or from your humanness? Meaning what we think our humanness is, right? Are you going to respond from your divinity, which is the higher place in you, or from the lower? All right? You have a choice at every moment. And choose ye this day whom you shall serve. Right? So when the appearances are happening, and we know they do, and the show is going on, and it seems, boy, it's all going this way, I can say, what does that to do with me? I can assert my truth in that moment. There's a statement, if things go awry, you don't have to go with them, right? So we need to utilize the law of spiritual force so that we will not be forcing on the outside, right? We need to absorb the truth of what is in the first stage so that we will not turn into, the negative phase of that is the person who's just, doesn't do anything, doesn't do anything, right? But the constructive state of absorption is to charge up on those givens. All right, so this involves, law of force involves right application of will, your divine will. The highest use of your will is not to get power over others. It is to stand your ground, till you get there. Assertion of your divinity. Right application of, I like to say, truth or appearances. If you don't assert the truth, you're going to get the appearances. Faith, daring to trust. Think of an animal. There's a story of a horse, a man and a horse, and they reach the river, and the horse knows, the rapids and the whole thing, and the horse, made a determination that I can make it across that river, and it found the way. And it shows the capacity that we have to find the way through the divine in us when we are daring and we trust and we rely radically on the power that we are one with. So, assert, I believe in supply. I believe there is good for me. I am tired of believing that, I have to make do. I believe the kingdom is mine. So this positive qualities, daring instinct, there is a way, knowing, regardless of appearance. This brings you spiritual fortitude, And it does bring you the kingdom. I will promise you that. When you are finally more in the truth than you are in disbelief, the quantum, the critical point, then boom, everything falls right in place. But you must do the inner work. All right. Sometimes it's go the last mile. All right. Law of work. So you can see we're building inner. I recognize the presence. I recognize what it is. I have a new idea of what God is, and that I am one with that. I have a new idea for the ideas of my life, and that I am one with that. And I'm in right relationship with this universe. I am in the relationship of love, right appreciation, right action. Law of work is that we must give. We are God in unique manifestations of the infinite. And we all have immeasurable riches to give. And this gets into soul purpose, which we can do later. Law of work. My supply, this is the level where your prosperity appears through your work. And I believe this is a level of right participation. Right participation. Where we are giving a right, not to gain, but to express our excellence, our creativity, those, things about us that are unique, and each one of us is a unique facet of the crystal. There are no duplicates, no two thumbprints in this universe. So the perfect functioning of this universe takes the operation of all of us. All of us as one great whole, doing our thing. Right? So before I get to this stage, or if I'm in a stage of ignorance, I have to take whatever is given to me. I go to work, I'm not involved in it, I'm working to make a living. I say, God gave you a living already. Why are you working to make a living? We have to use it. So here is where we must inspect within ourselves, what are my attributes? What are my assets? What are the things I can bring? And then we bring them voluntarily. And maybe a better word than work is serving, as Michael said, right service. You hear this in the Eightfold Path of the Buddha. One of the paths is right, loving service. So this is something we consciously choose to do in the way that we participated by bringing our best into the universe. All right? Now, when I am freely giving, and I am asserting this, and I'm realizing that I'm not doing this to make a living, I'm doing this because I'm spirit, and I am participating in my world, and bringing the good that I have, then I rise above working for a living. That is the gift I get. I don't have to, I don't have to go clock in with someone else anymore because I'm clocked in with God. Okay? I don't have to sign someone else's timesheet because I know what I'm about doing. Voluntary giving of your creative energy, the good that you are, and give more than is asked. Always be willing to give more than is asked. Every prosperous being knows this. Don't wait for someone to say, oh gee, I wish, make yourself, as Michael would say, indispensable. Indispensable. Actually, on your own, delight in giving more than what is asked. And the universe will promote you. So your real boss is higher than you know. And knows what you're doing, okay? And it promotes you. So, the more I give, the more I receive. And I work, not to get money, not to be a robot, but money is a byproduct, of course, of being in right relationship. And the more perfect your relationship is, the more money you have, the more zero you have. Okay? So, voluntary giving. And Paul Coelho is a great author, and he wrote the book, The Alchemist, about a young boy in an adventure going across the desert, and this boy is seeking the pyramid, the truth, and so on. And he comes to a place where he was helping this old man who had an old shop. And on his journey, he met this man and he was helping him with the shop. And so this is run down, not a lot of clients, things weren't really happening there. But the boy was the embodiment of this. So by the time the boy was there, he would get these ideas. Well, let's put a cafe here. Let's put some beautiful pieces here. And he would just start rearranging and bringing in that consciousness. And of course, complete success came for that place. And that was the consciousness of that boy who was operating the prosperous law. He knew the law, okay? We cannot withhold and expect to receive. And maybe we can do that for a while. But the best way is be volitional, make your choice, you go out there and do it. All right, so now on the spiritual level, again, if we're doing the mental and spiritual work, taking time to meditate, to look at the divine patterns, to align with them, to correct what's out of line in our life and so on, then we get relieved of physical hard labor. We get relieved. And this is a path of ascension. And none of us can escape. We must perform right relationship, and then we're relieved to the higher level. Okay? So, prayer, meditation, right motive. I give because that's who I am. It's my joy. As I give, I receive. Right? It's my joy. Okay. Right self-expression, right participation, right activity with a harmonious whole. Remember, we are a one. The universe is the one. Build up your highest motives of love. Build up right focus. You can ask yourself too, later on, you can ask yourself, what level am I at? Most of us we kind of live multi-level, sometime here, sometime there. But ask yourself, what level are you at, and what do I need to add to get to the next level? What do I need to add unto myself? Okay, the fourth is the law of attraction, and just briefly, that is where you're like a magnet. You've so built up your consciousness, you're in right action, right behavior, right thought, right thinking, right doing, right alignment with all that is. You are like a magnet, and that's the point where you're no longer, where everything seems to be just coming to you, just coming to you. You ever had that, where things just seem to manifest and manifest? It's because you have embodied that now, okay? And at that point, we can even let go of the points that have gone before, because now we have become the thing itself. We have become it through right practice. We have become it, and we are, the instant magnet. Your consciousness is all corrected. So you don't have to learn how to ride the bike again. It's already part of your being. And you bypass then all those other phases. All right? Says that he who hath the Spirit hath the sign also. So if we have the right consciousness, we have the demonstration. We have the manifestation. Supply as inheritance 5. That's where we know I've inherited the kingdom. We have moved from the position of maybe servant of the law to become the son and daughter. We've entered the royal family. We know that supply is ours for the asking. That it is already given. It is already given. 6, creative process. That we realize, first of all, this creative process is going on all the time, independently. It's just the way the universe works. Always creating. Thought things, idea things, always manifesting. So the action of our supply is natural. It's the follow-up of breath, thought thing, whatever I need is a natural follow-up to sustain my world. And the law is the servant of spirit. The creative law is the servant of spirit. So the things in my life, the good I want, is meant to facilitate my life, to facilitate my higher purposes. In other words, the idea of my life is not that I go to a job forever. The idea is that job facilitates my higher expression. You see? So the universe is like, always wants us to have this, and it's its nature to express, and it is ours to express, like Niagara comes down with such a force. And this is the force of supply, universal supply, that pours in upon us. And we very often feel it as a pressure. Oh, I need to improve, I need to do something. And that is that universal spirit of supply, which we're one with, pressing us onward to raise our consciousness to a greater level that we may receive, to open the floodgates. And that is our inner nature pressing outward. And, you think about how we have ideas, we like to do things, imagine. This is just how we are, right? Just how we are. The seventh level, now, if we're rising incrementally, we're getting in right relationship with the universe, we're getting in a constructive consciousness, right thinking about whatever our challenge might be of the moment. We want to arise to the place where no matter what we're feeling, remember we're not our feelings, no matter what, that truth is rising free in our consciousness, that we are able to literally give a blessing to any situation by naming the truth. The first words that out of our mouth, instead of being reactive and victim, is to be naming the truth. And we are literally putting on the new mind, okay? We need to heal ourselves in all our bodies, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And we need all of our bodies, like heart and mind, for instance, working as a one. So the first shift starts with the correction of mind in our ideas, by consciously changing our ideas. Then what happens is there is an alchemy in my emotions that's automatic. Now realize this, your mind leads. So if I say, gee, it's going to be a terrible day, the immediate follow-up to that is a depression in my system. Okay? Immediate follow-up. And yet, if I stand in the face of the whatevers and I say, I know that all things are working together for my highest good, there's an immediate elevation of my feelings. So by my choice of how I'm going to handle something, I can elevate myself, or I can, depress or disempower myself, right? And we were just talking, actually, both Peter and Marie, right, Maria? Both saying that there is no energy in experiences. Realize it. And everything that comes to me in my life has come for me to really, literally bless it, to make it a thing of truth, all right? So if hurt comes to me, or I respond to something with a hurt feeling, it is up to me to alchemize that to love and freedom, releasing that energy back to the Creator, perfected, as it were, right? So there is no energy. It's all in my attitude about it. And we know, it's just saying with Peter, the same thing can happen to two people. And one can have a golden consciousness of only good, and they can turn lemon into lemonade, right? Through their word. The other may have some other tendency, and through their word it will be so. So there's absolutely no energy, no qualified energy in experiences, and everything has the potential to manifest itself as the perfection.